It was a moment frozen in time, an ordinary day that would turn into something extraordinary. The sun was setting over the quiet streets, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. The car was gliding down the road, its engine purring smoothly, and everything seemed normal. But then, out of nowhere, a voice pierced the air. A shout, desperate and urgent. "Don't drive." The words rang out like an alarm. It came from a young girl, her voice full of panic and fear. She stood by the side of the road, her appearance unkempt, her clothes ragged, her face a mix of sorrow and desperation. The girl was a beggar, her days spent asking for help from strangers. But this time, her cry was different. This wasn't just another plea for charity, it was a warning. The car slowed as the driver, Melania Trump, looked out of the window. The moment the words hit her ears, something in her froze. Melania, usually so composed, so controlled, was struck by the intensity of the situation. Her eyes met the girl's, and for just a moment, everything else in the world seemed to fade away. A sense of unease settled in her chest, a knot that wouldn't go away. Something wasn't right. The car came to a stop. Melania hesitated, the bustling street now seeming oddly quiet as she looked at the girl who had interrupted her journey. Her mind raced. What could this girl possibly mean by her strange warning? Was it a coincidence, or was there something more beneath the surface? As the driver thought for a split second, a second, even more shocking event occurred. From the corner of her eye, Melania noticed something strange. A few of the passers-by began to murmur, glancing toward her vehicle with concerned expressions. And as the vehicle slowly started to move again, the truth began to unfold. It wasn't just the beggar girl's shout. It wasn't just an innocent bystander's reaction. There was something about this moment that was about to change everything. Something Melania couldn't ignore. Was she being followed? Was there a hidden danger lurking, far deeper than anyone could imagine? The car slowed to a stop, the tension building with every passing second. Then it happened. The security detail, who had been watching from a distance, rushed forward with a look of alarm on their faces. They surrounded the car in a flurry of motion, their actions uncharacteristically rushed, their voices sharp. What were they checking? What had triggered their sudden panic? For the first time in a long while, Melania felt a chill run down her spine. She knew, deep down, something was off. Something wasn't right about this entire situation. And as the security personnel opened the car door, the sense of foreboding grew stronger. The vehicle had been searched, the contents checked, and yet nothing seemed to make sense. The tension in the air was thick with uncertainty. And as Melania looked out of the window at the beggar girl, who stood silently, her eyes filled with something unspoken, a thought flashed through her mind. What if this wasn't just a random encounter? And with that, everything came to a standstill. What exactly was going on? What had they found? The question remained unanswered, lingering in the air, leaving everyone with the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much larger. As the minutes ticked by, the atmosphere inside the car grew heavier. Melania's heart raced, her mind running through countless scenarios. What had just happened? The beggar girl's warning couldn't have been random. There was something about her, something in her eyes that made it clear she wasn't just another person on the streets asking for a handout. This was different. Outside, the security team moved with swift precision. They checked the car once, twice, and now a third time. There was no immediate threat, nothing obvious. No wires, no suspicious packages, no hidden devices. Everything seemed normal, but that only made the unease in Melania's chest grow stronger. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that she was being watched. The car's tinted windows provided some protection from the outside world, but Melania's mind couldn't escape the questions that kept spiraling. Why had the girl shouted, "Don't drive"? What did she know that Melania didn't? A few days before, Melania had been on a routine visit to a local charity event. It had been a simple, scheduled appearance, one of many she had made throughout the years. But things hadn't gone as planned that day. A strange encounter with a reporter had left her feeling unsettled. Words left unspoken, cryptic remarks that she couldn't quite piece together. But now, in this moment, she wondered if that was all connected. if someone was trying to send her a message. Melania leaned back in the seat, staring out of the window at the beggar girl, who hadn't moved. She stood there as if she were waiting for something or someone. But what? Her security detail was still swarming around the vehicle, checking every inch. One of the agents, a tall, broad-shouldered man, came to the window and glanced at her. He seemed calm on the surface, but Melania could tell he was troubled. He opened the door slowly and leaned in, speaking in a low voice. "Ma'am, there's something strange going on. We've been monitoring the area, and there's a person we're concerned about. We can't find any direct evidence, but it feels like we're being watched." Melania's stomach churned. Watched? By who? "We don't know yet, but we're pulling in extra resources to ensure your safety. We're going to stay here for a bit longer while we assess the situation." It felt like the walls were closing in on her. She nodded silently, but her mind was far from calm. The girl's warning echoed in her head. There was something more to this story, something deeper. She glanced out the window again, her eyes scanning the crowd. The beggar girl was still standing there, unmoving, her gaze fixed on the vehicle. There was something almost deliberate about her posture, as if she were waiting for Melania to understand something, to make a move. Just then, the sound of approaching footsteps interrupted her thoughts. Another agent, a woman this time, approached the car, her expression serious. She leaned in close to Melania, her voice barely above a whisper. "We found something. It's not good." Melania's heart skipped a beat. Her hands clenched the armrest, her knuckles turning white. She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Tell me." "There's a connection between the beggar girl and someone we've been tracking for months now. We don't have all the details, but it's linked to a larger operation, a network we've been investigating. The girl is more than she seems." Melania felt a cold rush of fear flood through her veins. This wasn't just an isolated incident. This wasn't just a random street encounter. The girl had known something, and now the question was, what was she involved in? The tension in the air thickened. Melania's mind raced. Was she in danger? Had she unknowingly walked into something bigger than herself? She thought about the reporter from the other day, the cryptic words, the unease she felt in that brief conversation. Could it all be connected? The more she thought about it, the more the pieces started to fit together. The reporter had mentioned an underground operation, a shadowy figure that no one had been able to identify. They'd been digging into it for months, trying to uncover the truth. Melania had dismissed it then, assuming it was just a sensational story. But now she wasn't so sure. The agents were still working outside the vehicle, their voices urgent as they spoke in low tones. Melania tried to focus on what they were saying, but it was hard to concentrate with the weight of the situation pressing down on her. The girl's warning was no longer just an isolated shout. It was a crucial piece of a much larger puzzle. Suddenly, the sound of sirens pierced the air. In the distance, flashing lights illuminated the street, their red and blue glow reflecting off the buildings. The agents snapped into action, signaling to one another, their movements swift and deliberate. Something was happening. Something big. Melania's eyes widened as she watched the scene unfold. She felt like a pawn in a game much larger than herself. The unknown figures in the shadows, the cryptic warnings, the connection to the beggar girl, it was all spiraling out of control. What did the girl know? And why had she chosen this moment to speak up? As the agents closed in on the vehicle, Melania's thoughts were racing faster than her heart could beat. The answers were out there. But how long would it take to find them? How much time did she have before everything changed? The air was thick with uncertainty, and the deeper she dug, the more she realized. The truth was far more dangerous than she could ever have imagined. The sirens grew louder, their blaring wail echoing through the street, signaling the arrival of more security and authorities. The scene was escalating quickly, and Melania's heart pounded in her chest. The beggar girl, still standing motionless, now seemed even more intense, her expression unreadable. The entire situation felt like it was slipping out of control, and yet, there was one thing Melania knew for sure. The girl's warning hadn't been a coincidence. She wasn't just a street beggar. She was part of something bigger, something dangerous. As the agents worked in a flurry of action, Melania's thoughts swirled in a blur. She glanced again at the girl, her ragged clothes, the haunted look in her eyes. There was an eerie stillness about her that didn't fit the typical image of someone living on the fringes of society. Then, without warning, the girl turned and began walking away, her back to the vehicle. For a moment, Melania's instinct screamed to stop her, to demand answers. But before she could react, the security agents had already begun to swarm the girl, their movements quick, calculated. One of the agents, the same tall man who had spoken to Melania earlier, rushed toward the beggar, grabbing her arm firmly. The girl flinched but didn't resist. He pulled her toward the agent's van, and as he did, something slipped from her coat pocket, a small folded piece of paper. It landed softly on the ground, unnoticed by the agents. Melania's eyes locked on it. She had no idea why, but something told her she needed to know what was on that paper. As the agents turned away, securing the girl for questioning, she acted without thinking. She opened the car door, her heart racing, and quickly retrieved the note. Unfolding it, she saw a single word scrawled across it in messy handwriting. *Ruinen*. Her breath caught in her throat. It was a warning, not just for her. The girl had been trying to tell her something more urgent, more critical. And now it felt like time was running out. But why? Why had the girl chosen her? Was Melania herself the target of something bigger? Or had she inadvertently become part of a situation that she wasn't supposed to be involved in? Just as she began to piece together the implications of the note, an agent approached her from behind. He looked at her with a mix of concern and authority. "Ma'am, we need to move you to a safer location. There's been a new development. The girl, she's part of a larger network. We believe she was trying to protect you. There's a threat against you, and we need to get you out of here." The weight of the moment crashed down on Melania. The tension in her chest, the chill running down her spine. It all made sense now. This wasn't just about a random encounter with a beggar. The girl had known something was coming. She'd been trying to warn Melania before it was too late. As she was led away by the agents, she looked back one last time at the girl. She was being loaded into the van, her face hidden by the agent's hands. But Melania could see it in her eyes. A flicker of something, regret, perhaps, or was it fear? Melania couldn't tell, but the look haunted her. The car sped off, the sirens now distant in the background, but the events of the past few minutes played over and over in her mind. What had she just uncovered? Was she part of a conspiracy, and who exactly was behind this threat? As Melania settled into the backseat of the secure vehicle, the enormity of what had just unfolded started to sink in. She knew she wasn't out of danger yet. This was just the beginning. The network the girl was connected to had far-reaching arms, and they were only just starting to realize Melania was involved. But for now, as the car sped away from the chaos, she had one thing in her possession that could give her some hope: the note. It was a cryptic message, yes, but it was also proof that there was someone out there who had tried to protect her. Someone who had known what was coming.
The world outside seemed peaceful, the streets calm again, but inside, Melania's mind was anything but. There were questions without answers, and the sense of danger was more real than ever. She didn't know where this road would lead, or who was behind it all. But she had one promise to keep: she wouldn't run. Not without uncovering the truth. The stakes were too high now. And the girl's warning wasn't the last of the mysteries she would uncover. As the night darkened around her, Melania's resolve strengthened. The game had just begun, and she was ready to play. The truth was out there, and she would stop at nothing to find it.